President Trump vowed to improve the nation's economy when he took office for the second time. But now, 18 months later, Americans continue to say they are not seeing the benefits.
Affordability is a hoax. It's a con job. I think affordability is the greatest con job.
People are buying their holiday presents. They're planning.
Look, don't be dramatic.
The president had suddenly refused to sign a bill supported by Republicans and Democrats that would have helped Americans with housing and affordability.
Much more than a bill, that big deal. It's a yawn.
The recent escalation in the war with Iran is once again causing gas prices to rise.
This is peanuts, and I appreciate everybody putting up with it for a little while.
I don't think about Americans' financial situation.
As we near November's midterm elections, there's one word you're going to hear over and over again: affordability. No matter how many times the president calls it a hoax, affordability concerns are so real for too many Americans. Prices at the pump are on the rise amid the ongoing Iran war. The cost of housing remains a top political issue among young voters. Polling shows about 2/3 of Americans say they would describe the cost of groceries as unaffordable, up from the 45% who said the same thing in February. And looming over it all, the impact of AI on the economy now and for years to come. With us now to talk about it, co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box and the New York Times columnist Andrew Ross Sorkin, Wall Street reporter for the New York Times Lauren Hirsch, and the host of the Lindbergh Conspiracies podcast and editor of the Free Press, Joe Nocera. Thank you all so much for being with us. Andrew, you and I have been talking for years about a schizophrenic economy. We talked about it during the Biden administration, saying, how high can interest rates go? We keep expecting this economy to cool down. It just doesn't do it. Now we're sort of on the other side of that. But the one constant through Biden and Trump eras is the fact that people just can't afford. Most working Americans can't afford the rising cost of gas, of groceries, of housing. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. What gives?
Well, look, I think we're in this split screen economy because on one side, you look at the screen and you see the stock market and it continues to levitate, frankly, in so many ways. And on the other end, you talk about the affordability crisis, which is very, very real. The thing that I keep thinking about is, do those things ever start to make sense? Do they come together or not? And I worry that we are sort of set up longer term for and maybe this gets to the issue of inequality, but to a greater degree than ever, a sense that we're going to have a haves and have-not economy. And that's going to have some major, major political implications. You talked about artificial intelligence, which, by the way, largely is what is powering our economy. You go back, and I've talked to you about it before. Jason Furman, the economist, has looked at this. If you take what's happening in terms of the AI growth out of the economy, our GDP is flat to down. And even though I know people don't think that technology necessarily is supposed to impact the rest of everything else, it really does and really is. And we'd be in a much worse place without it. And so I also worry about whether we may have a bubble in that area that pops and what kind of collateral damage comes with it. And that unto itself will become a political football if it is not already.
I mean, a real political football, and you just look at that boom, see how it's driving the economy so much, just like deficit spending over the past decade, over the past 20 years. Have been giving us an artificial sugar high. I'm curious, Lauren. You look at the headlines, and they talk about grocery prices. Headlines talk about gas prices. But in the CNBC survey out July 19th, the cost of housing is the top political issue, ranked higher than the cost of food or protecting democracy for voters between 18 and 34. I mean, this is a story of my generation. When I was 25, 26, I didn't have a great job, but I had a ranch home, like a 3-bedroom ranch home. That was easy. I could afford that. Today, people getting out of college, working 3-4 years, they still feel like they're 15 years away from being able to afford their first home.
Yeah, it's this whole question of the American dream. I was having this conversation with the CEO recently. You know, the home ownership was a fundamental kind of tenet of the American dream of making it. That's no longer accessible for many people. And if you're renting, your costs continue to go up. So not only do you not have that asset of home ownership, but your costs continue to rise while wages are relatively stagnant. So the pressure just keeps continuing, and all this growth and money that we're seeing is really on the higher end. And so, as Andrew mentioned, as we've been talking about and seeing, it's really this K-shaped economy that's not really improving at all, it seems, at least for the lower end in the near term.
Yeah, hey, Joe, can you give us your sort of 30,000-foot take on the economy, where you see it, the strengths and weaknesses, and where you expect it to go over the next year to two?
Well, betting on the economy is not my strongest suit. But you know, I'm with Andrew. I worry a lot about a bubble and what that would mean when you think back to 2008 and how damaging that was and how devastating that was. I do think that, you know, we're in this situation where people just are not making enough money to, you know, feed their families, buy a house, do all the things that they expect to be able to do. And if you take it a little away from the economy and you think about it in political terms, this explains a lot about the rise of the Democratic Socialists, about Mamdani, about all the other progressive candidates who are succeeding because people are just really upset with what they view as the failure of the long-term failure of capitalism to give them the kind of life that they have always expected. I don't know where the economy is going to be in a year from now, but I seriously doubt it's going to be a lot better than it is now.
Yeah, and you know, Joe, I want to talk about something that you've done a lot of reporting on. But first, I want to talk about the fact that you have a president that always calls affordability a hoax, a president who refused to even sign the housing bill, and yet you report that he has somehow figured out how to squirrel away billions of dollars for his family. And for me, I'm not concerned about this fall's elections. I'm not asking you this in terms of this fall's election. Of course, I'm concerned, but that's not what my biggest concern is. So my biggest concern is Americans' confidence in capitalism. And you see that happening. You see a trillionaire with a chainsaw bragging about cutting relief for the poorest of Americans. I'm afraid that drives a wedge between younger voters and those of us who believe that capitalism, when done the right way, is the best economic system for growth.
Well, first of all, it is the best economic system for growth. There's no question that millions, if not billions, of people have been brought out of poverty. Look at China, India, because of capitalism, and look what capitalism has done for this country over the course of its history. The growing gap between rich and poor has corroded people's belief in capitalism. The sort of lack of loyalty between corporation and worker has corroded capitalism. But also, I mean, with this president in particular, the grift after grift after grift, it's kind of astonishing. And you know, we've talked on your show a lot about this, but, you know, I just want to bring up the latest one, which just blew my mind, which is that Trump's social media company is now saying that they will give Wall Street firms a sneak peek at his tweets in advance of everybody else if they pay him a certain amount of money. You just can't believe somebody would actually do this. How does that give anybody faith in the system?
Yeah, and Andrew, Joe talks about grift after grift after grift after grift. So Americans see that. And then you pile on top of that billionaires and multinational corporations getting tax cuts instead of like small business owners and entrepreneurs, because that's where the focus seemed to be when I was growing up. Let's build the middle class. Let's build up entrepreneurs. Let's build up family businesses. Because that's the driver of the economy. But that just hasn't been the case. And so
look,
the tax cuts are going to the richest of the rich.
I agree with you, and I think the biggest problem right now facing just the very concept of capitalism is that so much of capitalism as we know it has been corrupted, and that's why I think you see the rise of the DSA in terms of the conversation they're having about all of this, because we are living right now in a sort of crony capitalistic society. Having said that, I don't think we should be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think we need to fix capitalism, and I think part of the problem is you have the wealthiest people in the country oftentimes using the system to change the tax code so that they get to benefit from the tax code in ways, frankly, that so many others don't. I think people look at that, for example, as part of the problem. On the other end, by the way, you have Democrats calling for rent freezes and all sorts of things that, by the way, if you understand the economics of how the system works, rent freezes are not going to create more affordability ultimately, because it's going to create a disincentive for folks to develop new property, which is what we need. We need more supply. If we're ever going to get true affordability for housing, we need a lot more supply. There should be cranes all over this country building, and that's not what's going on right now. And so you have on both ends a demonstrable problem, and I don't know how you get back to the middle, which is what you need.